Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
How are the Jaguars planning to use their star draft pick, Travis Hunter? Also, how concerning is Matthew Stafford's back injury? And the Denver Broncos, they are looking mighty dangerous.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
I'm not sure there is a player in the NFL for whom the daily updates of where he's practicing, what color jersey he's in, has been followed closer in this training camp process right now than the one and only Mr. Travis Hunter down in Jacksonville. Tony Wiggins down there with us from Locked On Jaguars. Tony, you and I were talking about this offline just because I was so fascinated by what was happening down there. What has the plan been for Travis Hunter, and what is the plan moving forward?
I think they're trying to figure it out, Peter. They admitted that they don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know what it's going to be like. But I've seen firsthand in practice why they want to play him on both sides of the ball. He's neck and neck with Brian Thomas Jr. as the best receiver on the team. And then when he's on defense, he has special effects and ability to break on the ball, man, that is just unreal. He literally is the first person I've ever seen that could be all pro at two spots.
Yeah, there's already this discussion of could he be offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year in one. One of the things you mentioned to me was that they felt like they had not managed his snaps the right way. So what were they doing and how have they changed that?
So in OTAs, they would have him on offense consecutive days. And I think Liam Cohen said it was 3 or 4 straight days without doing anything defensively. And he said that during minicamp, they realized they made a mistake because it was too much catch up. So now, even when he's on offense, he's meeting twice a day, film wise, and in the meetings with the defensive staff. And even when he has on a teal jersey, which is offense, when he goes out to practice, when everyone else is stretching, he's with Ron Miles and Anthony Campanile. Campanile lines up at wide receiver. Ron Miles is sitting there coaching him, and Ron Miles is in the defensive backfield with him. And you can tell based on what Campanile does, then Travis responds to it. He either lets him go, gives him away, or he goes and takes the responsibility for himself. And then when they get in 11 on 11 with him in a white jersey, I haven't seen him change jerseys in one day, but the next day you'll see him. And he really, really does remember that. He's just a kid with a very, very high football IQ and so much energy. I think if you didn't let him do this, he would probably get bored.
So he's one of those gifted kids who, like, if he just was on the regular plan, he'd be acting up. Like that's how those gifted kids tend to work. It's let's overload him if we can. Let's try and see how much he can handle because they think he can handle it.
They do believe he can handle it. And the thing is it's not out of necessity because they have Brian Thomas Jr., they have Downey Brown, they have another couple of receivers that have played really well. Parker Washington and Joshua Cephas have looked really good. And then you look at the other side of the ball, Jarian Jones made a play today where he snatched the ball from Brian Thomas Jr. with one hand while guarding him. They got Jordan Lewis. Tyson Campbell got a contract extension. They're not desperate at either one of those spots. So this is a luxury. And this was the Jaguars saying, look, we need an infusion of talent. We need a generational player. Let's just trade up in a draft that doesn't have a bunch of them and go get him. This kid is the number 2 player in next year's draft if he's still in the draft. So while you have a chance to get someone like this, raise the level of talent. There's a lot of ways you can help your team. You can raise the floor. You can inject talent in the middle. They injected talent at the very top of this thing. And they took the guesswork out of it. And just like you do on Game Time, you take the guesswork out of buying tickets. You take the guesswork out of whether or not a guy's talented enough to be on the field for you on offense and defense. And he is.
That's the corporate synergy we appreciate about you, Tony.
Yeah.
I can't not ask about Trevor Lawrence because I got in trouble with some Jaguars fans a week or so ago because I said, if that what was happening in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence were happening somewhere else, it would be a bigger story. He came in as a generational, talk about generational prospects, generational first overall pick, and has inherited a mess in Jacksonville. They gave him the contract. And so what does he need to prove this year? What does he need to show you for you to believe that he is still headed in the right direction, that there's still an elite quarterback in there?
I think he's elite. I just believe what he has to do mainly is to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. He has to stay extremely healthy. The dude has never had a QBR. He had 95, 88, and 85 over the course of the last couple of seasons of his first years in the league. He's a very, very talented player who makes hard throws. What I have seen him do was try too hard. And the reason why he had to try too hard was because he knew they couldn't run the ball in the red zone. They were throwing the ball horizontally because he didn't have time to throw it vertically. You're in the analytics, and I'm not really the analytics guy, but I do know this one stat. The Jaguars running backs were touched twice as fast as any other running backs in the league. They just could not block people, and the real problem was right up the middle, from guard to guard. And when you're like that and you know you don't have time, the thing that he's going to have to prove to me once the protection has improved this year, he has to prove he's not gun shy. He has to prove to me that hasn't affected his psyche, and it hasn't, because he's been coached so poorly, that he can overcome that. And a lot of times franchises ruin players before players ruin franchises. I think they're at about the right point where this could have been 1 year too late had they not made a move. And I think Liam Cohen got to him right in time so he can fix his feet. He's trying to give him answers pre-snaps. And basically it's almost like you want to, I would say Jared Goff, but I think he's more talented than that. I think you want him to play like Troy Aikman, who was super, super talented, who was the quintessential quarterback that if you go to a football camp, you're looking for that, 6'4", 220 with a gun of an arm. Yep. But you put him in a position where he doesn't have to be Batman or Superman every play. You just have to do that once or twice in certain situations. Patrick Mahomes has been insulated by a great offensive line and great coaching staff and great structure. The teams Brady, Manning, they all had it. Favre, Rodgers, they all had it. This kid has never had that. He has had poor offensive structure, poor organizational structure. And you just can't, I don't care what kind of press clippings you have from high school to college. If you have that, you're not going to succeed.
You can stay up to date all year on the Jacksonville Jaguars by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Jaguars on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Rams are a little worried about Matthew Stafford. Before we get to that, we got some NFL training camp updates for you from our hosts who are there. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Mark Andrews, he's coming alive in pads for the Ravens.
This is the pass rusher, I think, that could really turn the tides for Baltimore in terms of having that guy, the dude, the guy, because I've talked about it a ton. Every team in the AFC North has that. I know the Bengals and Dre Hendrickson, that's really weird right now, but the Bengals and Hendrickson, the Steelers and TJ Watt, and the Browns and Myles Garrett. Mike Green truly has that like all-world potential with how he can bring the physicality as a run defender, and he has speed to power. He has an array of pass rushing moves. You know, he knows how to get in the backfield, be a disruptor, and the fact that he was balling out the way that he did at practice on Monday with the pads coming on and him truly being able to unleash a little bit more, it feels like every day, it's huge.
Steelers hit a lull during day 5 of their training camp.
Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast here at Steelers training camp after day 5 at St. Vincent College. It actually wasn't a practice we got to see because there was a rain, believe it or not, without these blue skies behind me. There was a huge storm that came through, forcing the Steelers to cut their practice short as far as being outside and forcing them inside. That also meant no padded practice. So still, they have yet to have a padded practice after 5 days, but they fully anticipate to do that tomorrow as the weather looks better. But other news that happened there, I got to talk to Mason McCormick a little bit and Mike Tomlin about the competitive spirit between the young offensive linemen and young defensive linemen alignment and how important that will be moving forward. And a key player coming back will be Broderick Jones, who missed today's practice with an injury. So that's going to be a key element that's going to go into Wednesday's practice. Get all of that by checking out the Locked On Steelers podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube.
What began as an unspeakable tragedy in Manhattan took a chilling twist when officials revealed the shooter behind Monday's deadly office tower rampage had actually intended to target NFL headquarters, but took the wrong elevator. A handwritten note blamed football-related brain trauma for a decline in mental health, referencing CTE and calling out the league. 4 people were killed, including an NYPD officer working security. The NFL called it an unspeakable act of violence, while city leaders and faith communities gathered to mourn yet another loss to senseless gun violence. Matthew Stafford remains week to week with a back injury as training camp gets underway. Locked On Rams host Doug McCain discusses the timeline for his return.
How concerning is this Matthew Stafford back injury? Well, he's not going to practice next week. Sean McVay did say that despite originally projecting that he would practice Monday, that he hasn't had a setback and that he spoke out of turn. These are his words in putting a schedule on Stafford's return, but he did say that he is focused on getting him back to play in the Rams week 1 opener against the Houston Texans. So look, back injuries can be tricky. They can linger. At the same token, this is a veteran that's been in this league for a long time. You typically don't have guys like Matthew Stafford even practicing and playing in preseason games for the Rams, but still at his age, it has to be some level of concern. For me, I'll put out a 4.
Yeah, I think I'm right about there with you, D-Mac. I think, you and I both have had back injuries. You and I both know how debilitating these things can be. And you and I didn't spend, the better part of 20 years in the NFL getting smashed by 300-pound guys, So this is not nothing. It's not a 5-alarm fire, but it's not nothing. Look, you know my deal, and the everydayers will know this. If everything was fine, he'd be playing. He's not playing. If everything were, it's not a big deal, then he would be out there practicing with his teammates. So clearly there's something going on. When you put a 37-year-old quarterback out there, you're always going to be worried about their health. I think that he'll be okay. I don't think that this is, something where all of a sudden the season is in jeopardy. But yeah, Matt, look. Matthew Stafford is the thing that's going to make this go. If they have a great season this year, it'll be because Matthew Stafford has a great season. It's because Stafford will connect with Devontae Adams, and Puka Nacua will take a step up in the Cooper Kupp's old role, and Terrence Ferguson will stand. But none of these things happen if Stafford isn't doing what he needs to do, and that he's not practicing or that he's not throwing. I think it does matter, and I think I'm with you. I think it's about a 4. It's not quite a, hey, man, what's going on? But the longer you don't practice, the more real it gets.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not a concern of, he might miss the opener. It's just a concern of, is this something that when he does play, it can get worse quickly, or it can lead to something else that he's dealing with the entire season? Because the truth is he stayed healthy for most of the 2024 season, and he missed just 1 game in 2023. So he was healthy in 2024, missed the 1 game in 2023, and he came out of the season healthy. But the back soreness that's coming up before training camp definitely kind of makes you feel a little bit, like we were supposed to hit the ground running. We made all these moves, and Devontae Adams is in the mix, and you just really feel good about the offseason. It kind of just makes that feel a little less, I don't know. What I kind of lean on is, look, he was at practice on Saturday. He was in street clothes. And I like this from Sean McVay. He says he's doing really well. We've got a good plan in place. We are going to still take some more time with him, though. Nothing that's changed in terms of the setback. I probably spoke a little bit too soon, but the ultimate goal is Houston and being mindful of that. So we'll take it a week at a time with him. I did want to be able to let you guys know about that based on sitting down with Reggie Scott and with Matthew and talking to Dr. Watkins. It feels like the smart thing to do is a week at a time. So I don't even think that the check engine light is on, even, to be honest with you. I just think that this is their ticket to the Super Bowl, and they're not going to do anything to rush him through this process, knowing that he really does not necessarily need training camp. I do remember a couple years ago, Allen Robinson and him weren't building chemistry, and he was throwing towels and things like that because the elbow situation. So it kind of makes you wonder if, hey, the chemistry with Devontae Adams and him might be a little rushed early on the season. But yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth on this one just because it's driving me crazy.
I think the light on the check engine light, maybe not, but there's a weird shimmy that you can't quite put your finger out.
Yeah.
Like, why is it doing this? The car seems to be running okay, but why does it keep doing that? And you can't quite put your finger on it. I'll go back to what McVay, the quote that you just read from Sean McVay, this idea that, we have a plan in place. Okay, what's better is not needing a plan before you've played a single game, before a single exhibition game, before a single offseason practice, that if he just came in ready to go, I think that he probably got caught telling the truth a little bit, which is always a weird position to be in. Like, you think it's going to be okay, and you go, oh no, I think we're going to be okay, and then all of a sudden it's not okay, and it's like, hey, what's going on? And now you got to try to figure out a way to explain that. I think one of the other things, D-Mac, that's interesting for this team with regard to Stafford and with regard to getting him ready for the first few weeks of the season, the one thing the last 2 years that has not gone right for the Rams, and they got into the playoffs both years. They're one of the favorites coming into it this year. They've had terrible starts the last 2 years. They had a 1-4 start last year. They were 3-6 the season before that, and had to really hit the gas through the second part of the season to kind of work your way back into playoff position. And it would be nice to put a little money in the bank in the first part of the season. And You've got Philadelphia, you've got Baltimore at the early part of the year. So the last thing you want is to get off to a weird start against teams like Houston and Tennessee, where all of a sudden you're not as healthy as you should be, because I really do think a good start will allow you to manage your health a little bit better as you get deeper into the season. And that here we are, it's not even August yet, and we're talking about Matthew Stafford's back. It's at least a little concerning.
Stay up to date all year on the LA Rams by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Rams on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, do the Broncos have enough firepower to really be dangerous this season? The Broncos signed wide receiver Courtland Sutton to a massive extension. The offense has legitimate weapons. Locked On NFL host Lauren Cox wonders whether or not they have enough to be serious players during Sean Payton's third season in Denver.
It's tough to see, like, right now this year be the best of that group, just given less about Bo Nix and more about what some of those other guys have. Like, I look at the Denver Broncos, and they added Evan Ingram and they upgraded the backfield a little bit, but I don't know that they have, like you mentioned earlier, like, they don't have a lot of the big name kind of firepower. Whereas, like, you look at Washington and they go out and get Deebo Samuel, right? And they still have Terry McLaurin, and they've got some nice veterans, and plus an offensive system that we've seen him thrive in and be great. Like, it's hard to see him taking a step back. So now Bo Nix has to, like, catch up to a team that's also added some real firepower. And even, Caleb Williams in Chicago, they added tight end and a young receiver for him, and a new offensive coach that's supposed to fix things. Like, there's going to be a lot of competition from those second-year quarterbacks. And it feels like, and then we could throw in JJ McCarthy, I suppose, but it'll feel like his first year. But, like, all those guys are going to be really good. And even if Bo Nix isn't the best, doesn't mean he's not right there with him as a promising young player for the long term.
As much as the Locked On Packers host in me would like to disagree with the Locked On Bears host, I am very high on the Broncos this year. Defenses fluctuate, sometimes wildly, year to year. But I see this team, and I see the defensive player of the year. I see that pass rush. I see the additions that they made with Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. Those guys can be healthy. And I think this defense is filthy. I see the upgrades they made at running back. This is one of the best offensive lines in the league. If you have a great coach, a great defense, and a great offensive line, that can cover for a lot of problems. We don't know truly how good Bo Nix is. How much is it a product of being with Sean Payton, being with those receivers, being with that offensive line? But guess what? He has Sean Payton, those receivers, and that offensive line. And if he loses those things, any quarterback would suffer. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to overcome those obstacles, but most quarterbacks aren't. In fact, I think a quarterback who isn't is Jalen Hurts. But they won the Super Bowl last year, and they almost won it 2 years ago because their guys did stay healthy. Bo Nix can do that. And that makes Denver extremely dangerous. And finally, in one of the strangest Tour de France detours in recent memory. Stage 19 was shortened due to an outbreak of lumpy skin disease in cows. The route was trimmed by nearly 40 kilometers after infected cattle were culled, prompting organizers to reroute the stage out of respect for local farmers and to keep the race calm. It's not every day a cycling race changes course over a livestock crisis, but at the Tour de France, apparently even the cows can have an impact on the yellow jersey. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, the Dolphins are suffering more blows to their secondary on Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.